Yeah, so, hey, for anybody who didn't hear my introduction like a million times, I'm Charlie. I am being affirmed my new name today, and first, thank you. I just, again, wanted to thank the guests who came out. I really appreciate y'all being here and supporting me. Yeah, so the title of my talk today is Naming Your Destiny, and we are once again going to be flipping through Genesis 16, so you don't have to go very far. And we'll be talking at first about the story of Abram, and then I'm going to get a little bit into my naming journey. Hold up. Where's the mouse? There we go. Okay, so in ancient times, names were really important. They were... Did I steal your message?
Everybody's in my message. Go ahead.
We're all in each other's business.
I know. It's fine. We really are independent people. Okay,
yeah,
go on.
let's be independent together. Anyway. So in the scriptures, especially in the Old Testament, names were often given as context. So the children's names often reflected the circumstances of their birth. So, for example, Seth means appointed or a substitute. So that's because, and this would be the third son of Eve. And she named him that because basically God allowed her to have a third son in place of Abel, whom Cain killed. And this is from Genesis 4:25.
That's so Avon calling. God calling.
Yes. So flash forward several generations, and we're once again back at Abram. I found out his name means father is exalted. And although the scriptures don't tell us much, if at all, about Terah, his father, this is pretty much all that I could pick out. It's clear from the meaning of Abram's name that Terah was somebody that future generations should know and look up to. So let's look at a little bit of Abraham's life and calling, or Abram, I should say, at this point. So at age 75, God calls Abram to change basically everything he knows. He said, leave your land, your family, and your father's household for a land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation and will bless you. I will make your name respected and you will be a blessing. And that's from Genesis 12:1-2 of the Contemporary English Version. So for the next 25 years, God continued to reveal to Abram the future of the next generation. I pulled out just a few snippets here, but the land of Canaan would belong to his children and their descendants forever. That's found in Genesis 13:14-17. They would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. That's from Genesis 15:4-5. And that they'd be oppressed and enslaved for 400 years, but they would eventually be freed and given tremendous wealth along the way. And that was from Genesis 15:13-14. Now finally, at age 99, this would be 13 years after the incident with Hagar, God fulfilled his promise to Abram. So he still had to wait until Ishmael was a teenager for him to fulfill this promise of making him the father of many nations. And in doing so, he gave him a new name. No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. That's from Genesis 17:5. Now this is the part I find the most interesting and relevant to anyone who's in ministry or just wants to change their name. There we go. So, his birth name, Abram, was important to his family, but his chosen name, Abraham, was important to him. So, I figured I would share a little bit about my naming journey. Since I'm being affirmed with actually two of my chosen names today. So, as far as my first name goes, up until the day I was born, my parents did not know if I would be a boy or a girl. So they picked two names out for me. So Casey would be the girl's name, and Charlie would be the boy's name. My mom actually told me that story when I was like 10 years old, and I remember thinking, why couldn't you have just stuck with Charlie for both picks? But 10-year-old me didn't really have the language to really describe my complex relationship with gender. It took me almost another 20 years to figure it out and to settle on an identity, which for those of who don't know, I identify as agender, which is under the non-binary umbrella. So in doing all of that and discovering who I really was, I chose a name that my parents picked out for me years ago. Like Abraham's, my chosen middle name actually reflects my spiritual journey. So my first name reflects more of my personal journey, but the middle name is more spiritual to me. So let me tell you why I'm settling on the middle name of Andrew. I mean, first of all, it's pretty convenient. It already matches syllable-wise with what my existing middle name is. But of all the apostles, Andrew seems to be somebody that I can relate to and I want to look up to. So he's introverted as heck. Like, he seems very content to just fade into the background. We don't hear much about him at all, and I think he's only mentioned 13 times in the New Testament. But when Andrew did step up, his words and his actions spoke volumes about his character. So he was influential in the lives of those closest to him. In John 1, Andrew heard what John the Baptist was saying about Jesus. And the first thing he did is tell his brother Peter. Peter, for those who are keeping track, is the one who Jesus told to basically build the church. He was tasked with that, but Andrew was the one who actually brought him to Jesus in the first place. He was also observant, and he recognized Jesus' power. So in John 6, the whole feeding of the multitudes, actually Nick and I were joking about this over breakfast. We were trying to determine what Jesus would have been like to hang out with. And we were joking about how he would just kind of pull pranks on people. So in this story, he pulls Philip aside and he's just like, hey, where are we going to get all the food to feed these people? And he did that to test them. But I imagine it was done with a lot of like, hey, how can you solve this problem? Knowing full well that he couldn't. But what was really cool is that Andrew actually was like, hey, I found this guy who has like 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. It's not much, but Jesus, do you think you could do something with this? And it turns out that Jesus was able to do something with it. So in being observant, he also was like, okay, I recognize Jesus' power and authority. I can't do anything with this, but God can. And then I was also talking to you about how Andrew was inclusive, and this, I think, is my favorite story that we have about Andrew in the scriptures. So in John 12, Philip encountered a group of Greeks who wanted to worship Jesus. And the first thing Philip did is run and tell Andrew. And that tells me that not only was Andrew somebody that Philip could confide in, Andrew was somebody who was all about making Jesus more accessible to everybody. Now remember, I believe Andrew was Jewish, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yes, and so Greeks worshipped completely different than the Jews did, but nevertheless he was like, yes, I want to take you to see Jesus and worship him. And I think that's all I have. Yes, that's the last one I've got. So I've joked with you before about how I would have been content just being a pew warmer at a mega church for the rest of my life. But in all honesty, ministry has given me purpose and it's brought me a lot of joy. And so like my namesake Andrew, I hope to be inclusive, influential to those around me, and to be aware of God's power and agency in this world. Thank you. There you go.
And you are for the record.
Oh, thank you.
Imagine getting like a side job as a construction worker and having like Jesus on the roster. It's like your first day as like part-time laborer. He's like, hey, you're the new guy. Want to see a magic trick? It's like, alright, now turn around. He like moves the lumber from one side of the pile to the other. And he's like, bro, how'd you do that? He's like,
Jesus would be fun to hang out with, I bet.
Wherever you want to go. You can go here, you can go there.
Nik.
Do you need more room? My God. Okay.
Okay. Hello again. I am Nik Lewis, pronouns they, them, and my message today is called The Fluidity of the Call. Growing up in church, I kept hearing about the seasons of life. Seasons of depression, financial hardship, blessings, abundance, peace, turmoil, etc. Different seasons, all a part of the same life experience. churches and people undergo different seasons too. A church may experience positive growth for a time and revival, and then they may plateau or finally run their course and, stop. The leaders, regardless, are forced to adapt. They have to be fluid enough to let the Spirit guide them about what to do next. What they did may have worked for one season, but now they need to do something completely different or revisit something that they used to do but stopped altogether. The same things and even the same people won't work in every season. Change has to happen for things to progress. So how does that relate to name change? Well, for me, the name I'm choosing isn't all that different from my legal name. At birth, I was given the name Alexis Nicole Lewis. Now, I'm choosing, first time I'm officially announcing this, debating about Nikolai Alexander Lewis with the preferred name Nik. I never thought I would change my name like this, but here I am, still going through a gender discovery.
You told me it would never end.
I did, and then, I'm still doing it too. There's nothing wrong with my given name, but it doesn't fit the person I'm becoming as much right now, kind of like what you were talking about. Can't really explain why. The closest comparison I can think of would be someone giving you a really nice sweater. At the time, it's warm, it's comfortable, and you love it. Yet, over time, it starts to fit differently, maybe even uncomfortably. You may even be tired of looking at it, but there's something about it you still love. You just know overall it doesn't fit you where you are in life right now. So maybe you go find something similar you like. You may luck out, and you may find something that has the same charm or character that the gifted sweater had, or you discover you like something completely different in your search. Whichever option you like best, you go with. And if later you discover it doesn't fit you like you thought, you always know you can try something else on. That's me with my name. My legal and chosen name both mean the same thing. Victory of the people, mankind's defender or warrior, and famous warrior for my respective first, middle, and last names. So basically I'd just be fighting.
Sounds pretty accurate.
Fighting
Fighting gender, fighting patriarchy.
Dismantle that structure, Nik.
I mean,
Violence taken by force.
Samuel had a sword, so,
Okay, don't encourage that.
I'll hit you up for this one.
Don't encourage them. Okay, go on.
After looking at the name meanings, Saul and Heap, just kind of looking at different biblical figures who also underwent name changes. So like Saul to Paul, and then who else did I mention? Simon to Peter. So, for example, that's good. Name changes don't apply to everyone, and that's okay. But sometimes names need to be changed to fit you and your call. And if your existing name works, great. So, for example, in Acts 9, God changes Saul's name to Paul after revealing God's self to him. After looking up name meanings, I found that Saul in Hebrew means to ask or question. Paul in Latin means humble or small. God called Paul, who previously murdered Christians, something we kind of tend to forget, to stop asking where followers of Jesus were, to kill them, and instead be humble and serve God. And then in John 1:35-44, when Jesus first sees Simon, he looks at him and says, "You're Simon," which means to be heard in Hebrew, son of John. You will be called Cephas, which in Greek is Peter, and that name means rock. So while Peter was still being heard as he preached the good news following Jesus' ascension, he became a cornerstone of the early church, founding one in Antioch, which is in modern-day Turkey. So Peter's birth name fit him, but not as well as the name Jesus gave him did later. There's a song we love here at Sanctuary that we just